Increasingly, I've moved to, in the small group environment rather than the lecture environment, to simulations.
Okay.
So, for example, I taught a course on the Pacific War. That course I mentioned earlier, where I had a greenfields opportunity to build the course from scratch. And one of the issues was, well, most of these students aren't going to be historians, but I wanted to tell them the value of history, how history informs their everyday life. And so the tutorials were designed around simulated experiences where history could be played out, but that also directly related back to the content. So, for example, in the history of the Pacific War, Japanese comfort women was a big issue, the way these women became sex slaves of the Japanese military. It became a United Nations issue in the 1990s, early 21st century. It was discussed there. And so I designed essentially a simulation around the United Nations having a debate about comfort women, because there's a financial consequence. Japanese women have taken the Japanese government to the International Court of Justice to discuss these issues. So I said, we're in the International Court of Justice. You are the contract historians who are bringing these ideas, the cases for and against. And so there was one example. Another example was saying we're preparing a journalistic piece on commemoration of the war, or we were in a law office looking at prisoners of war. And so again, these opportunities, these simulated environments to show them, well, this is how history informs the way a lot of professions do their work. And I certainly found that students could see through that simulated experience that, that was the case.
Did they get really involved in that?
Yeah, it made things much more easy because they could immediately see the value. It wasn't an abstraction. That was really powerful. So simulations is something I've used quite effectively, and role plays, the other one I've used a lot. I teach another course on the Vietnam War, where the students role play Lyndon Baines Johnson's decision to commit to a ground war in Vietnam in 1965. So I give them a biography of each of the 12 or 13 personalities involved. I give them the documents that they gave to Johnson for or against this decision. And so they're briefed to play a character. I then play Johnson myself, so I can direct things. And I ask them, Secretary McNamara, what's your view on whether we should go? And the students know what they have to say. And what that does is really challenge that notion of teleology. Oh, I assumed everyone wanted to go to commit to a ground war in Vietnam, yet I'm hearing these competing voices that I didn't know existed because of the confidentiality of the cabinet process at that time or whatever. So there are two ways that I attempt to engage students. And again, by using simulation and role play, I think you can really effectively engage them and also demonstrate your own enjoyment, passion, love for the discipline.